Hi, Kathleen. I'm trying to break out of my molds. I always write papers, so I'm trying to make a video. Um, so this is my final reflection for partnering with adolescent learners, spring 2014. So the guiding question for the course was, what is the role of a teacher in a secondary classroom? At the beginning of the semester, I didn't really know what that meant. I mean, I guess that's why that's the guiding question, but I know like I had this idea of what it was going to be like when I was a teacher and what I needed to do, um, to be a good teacher. But I've learned a lot in this course, a lot of really valuable experiences, and participated in a lot of really valuable discussions around what it means to be a teacher in a secondary classroom. Um, in the beginning of the semester, we talked about adolescence, like getting to know your students. And I think after everything that I've read and done in this course, I think that's probably one of the most valuable things I learned. Um, Adolescents are like this really bizarre group of people, and they are a group, but every single one of them is an individual too. And I think in order to be a good teacher, you need to get to know your students. Adolescents are facing so many changes. They're changing cognitively, they're changing physically, they're changing socially. They're making friends that they have to keep, and they're trying to fit in, and they don't really get it. They don't get it. So I think in order to teach them, you have to try and get them. You know, they face so much outward pressure that you don't know what's going on inside of them unless you take the chance to get to know them. There's students that are bullied, that are dealing with poverty, or dealing with their parents at home fighting, or dealing with their sexuality, their developing bodies, and they need someone to understand them. And I think that as a teacher, you really get to have a special connection with them if your students will let you, and you will take the time to get to know your students. You get to see them more than their parents do sometimes, and you get to be a role model for them, and you get to be someone that will advocate for them. You get to learn about them, and they might confide in you, and you need to be that person that's willing to be there for them. On top of like teaching them your content, you're teaching them life skills. One of the other things that I've come to fully appreciate and like is backwards design. I don't think that I really understood what backwards design what like I understood what it was, but I don't think I understood how it worked until I did my lesson plan over the other day, and I used the right standard for vocab, and I redid my lesson plan. um so backwards design, you start with your learning goals and objectives, and then you determine what evidence you'll have to show that your students reached those goals, and then you go and plan the lessons and the learning events. And I think that can't imagine like what I can't even remember how I thought about it before this, because maybe I didn't even really think about it, but how are you supposed to assess someone on something like you're okay, so you're creating a lesson, and you go to make your assessment plan, but how do you like assess it if you didn't have goals in mind? Oh, like I taught them this in the lesson, so they should know it, but that's not necessarily true. Like what you have to know what evidence you're going to look for, and how you're going to create that evidence before you can just go off and make a lesson. Um I think that the most beneficial thing for me this semester was doing my practicum. Um at the point right before, so I'm standing outside and it's the first day of practicum, and I met Mr. Larson. I'm standing there. It's really cold. I'm there at 7:30, just like I was supposed to be, and the doors are shut, and I can't get in yet. And I'm just standing there, and I've got the dress pants on. I've got the clothes on. I look like I'm professional, and I'm just thinking, oh my God, I am not ready for this. I cannot do this. And I wasn't teaching my lesson until 1:05 that day, and I had all day to stress out about being competent enough to do it. And I drank like 6 cups of coffee that day, and I was freaking out. And once the lesson started, it just started to come so naturally. I suddenly was comfortable, and I know exactly what happened because I recorded it and I do have the video evidence, but I think that if I didn't have that, I wouldn't think that I wouldn't be able to remember it all. It was just such a rush being up there and like interacting with the students in that way, that when I was done, I was fully and completely reassured that this is exactly where I need to be and exactly what I want to do with the rest of my life. And I'm only 20 years old, so saying that is kind of a big deal. You know, before it started, before practicum really started, I was thinking maybe this isn't for me. I had really like interesting experiences in my other education classes where I wasn't sure if this was something I wanted to do anymore because of not because of the class, but because of the readings and the things that I was doing at that time. And I wasn't sure if I was cut out to be a teacher. And my practicum completely reassured me that this is exactly what I want. Everything that I had done up until that point, every paper I had to write, every long reading I was assigned and had to read was finally worth it. And I think that this sounds silly. It's like divine intervention, I guess. But it was mind-blowing. It was a great experience. And like afterwards I talked about it to my friends for hours and hours and hours, and they were like, "Oh my God, please shut up." But it was great. It was a really awesome experience. So from the readings and from the work and the discussion that we did in class and my practicum and everything else in between, I think that I can answer what the role of a teacher in a secondary classroom is. I think that you need to be a leader and a role model. You are responsible for instilling positive thoughts into your students' minds. You need to be a learner because things are going to change, and you always need to be ready to go that extra mile and learn about the new technologies and learn what's relevant now to students, and always keep learning about your content because mastery is impossible, but competency is necessary. You need to advocate for your students. Like I mentioned before, they're going to struggle with things outside of your content, and they're going to struggle with your content, but you can't give up on them because they're having a hard time. Like if I ever wanted to give up on a student, then it's obvious that I'm not in the right profession. If I was willing to give up on a student, I think it goes against everything I've learned and everything I've believed. I want to be a teacher for a reason because I want to inspire students and I want to teach them and I want them to learn. And it's not going to be easy. That's silly. Why would you do something if it was easy? And you need to be a person, Uh, teaching is a teaching requires people skills, and you work with people every single day, so you never know what you're going to expect because students are people, and I am a person, you are a person, and you know, being personable and having those connections and letting your students like understand that you're not a robot is really important. Um, so I think that I pretty much covered what the role of a teacher in a secondary classroom is. I mean, also, it is to educate your students on your content. Do everything in your power to engage them and everything you can to enrich their lives. Like I said before, you're not just teaching, I'm not just going to teach English, I'm going to teach skills. I'm not really sure if this has been any good. I think I pretty much just babbled the whole time, but I could really talk about this for hours. I my practicum was such a great experience, and the readings through the course were really enlightening, and I I really enjoyed the discussions that we had in class, and I just know that this is what I want to do. I feel really good about it.